introduction. I'm so excited to have Doug Jackson with us today. I'm going to be giving a brief presentation and taking some questions on his work in Roanoke and beyond. But just as a brief introduction here, Doug Jackson is a capacity development specialist with the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development, where he provides facilitation and strategic support to Virginia communities and their placemaking partners. Over the past 15 years, he served on management teams for asset-based community development strategies such as the Clinch River Valley Initiative and Opportunity Southwest Virginia. Additionally, he served for 15 years in leadership roles with the Roanoke Arts Commission and co-chaired the community's first arts and culture plan. He currently serves as the City of Roanoke's Arts and Culture Coordinator, providing staff support and leadership for civic arts initiatives, including the city's public art program, creative placemaking strategies, municipal arts funding, and arts and cultural planning. Doug, we're so excited to have you here.
All right, thanks, Brad. Well, I'm really excited to be here, but I'm really here in a learning space. Everything that we're doing in Roanoke right now, we're trying to intentionally create a learning community. And my sense is that the work that you're doing here is right at the intersection of where we want to be, but we're late coming to it. So I listened to a lot of the podcasts that have been put out recently with your guests that come on campus. And like, in fact, I'm kind of using it as an informal little training for myself. And so today, I did want to give a little presentation, and then hopefully you'll give me some answers that I'm always thinking. And I did, let's see, okay, make sure that works. I did prepare a little presentation, and if it had a title, it would be Create the World. And this is I took this, you shouldn't quote yourself, but I took this from a piece I had published in a volume that was called Credo, and it was an anthology of manifestos for creative writing. And Credo, of course, means I believe. And the piece started, to write a true sentence, you must believe you can create the world, but that is exactly what you do. It takes faith, right? You have to believe. You pick up a pen, open the file, start a story, that you're going to create the world. The first hesitant strokes, a surprising syntax, a fledgling rhythm, and then, a form emerges. Land stands in an ocean of silence. Currents push against the theme. A wave swells. The atmosphere thickens and moons orbit in a tidal tug. We're spinning now, and all you can do is grasp for an axis, fall at the core, right. So I'm interested in that creative process, kind of what happens, like in that little description. I hadn't thought about that in a long time, but I thought about it when I was thinking about this today. And I've been thinking about that intersection of the creative process and then the ability to engage in the world around us. And that's what we're exploring through the Year of the Artist in Roanoke. I write, which is kind of a quiet, independent thing that I do, dark room by myself. So I focus on that path. But there are so many avenues to creativity. And I'm guessing that everybody in the room is an artist. Raise your hand or wave or raise your hand online if you are an artist. Yeah, I expect. You must be an artist.
Maybe.
No. So there's some form of creativity in all of our lives, in the way that we engage, and we. I hope eventually to live in a community where everyone can tell somebody else what it is that the arts do for them, and how they engage the arts, what their creative outlet is, how they engage that way. But I'd like to kind of use that. This image here is from our self-portrait project that I'll talk about in a little bit. It's by Amanda Kelly. But I do want to use this little piece as a launching point, and that aspect of belief. and that artists can see something that's not there yet and believe in that something. And we have to believe we can create the world through our work. Upon the imaginative, artistic impulses, an entire future can be built. But that creative impulse has to be active. And we have to value our contribution and see the potential for that outcome. And we have to think that the goal is worthwhile. And this piece is by Heather Marshall, and it's called Seeing is Believing, and it's in our self-portrait show as well. Second, we've got to embrace that that creative process is not in our control. So when we start to write, something else happens. Currents push against the theme. Our most beautiful imaginings, when you think about it, pale sometimes. What we imagine pales with what actually the outcome is. So writers will tell you that the character will start to talk to them, or artists will talk about being in the zone or feeling flow. And those surprising currents sometimes happen with the people that we're engaged in a process with. So you're in a room with people, no one's in complete control of the outcome, and suddenly the outcome is bigger than you anticipated, which is entirely possible. And there are things in that creative process then that letting go in a creative process, there are things that can teach us when we are working together in community. And there are things, the lessons that can teach us about the world around us. And of course, this is Bryce Cobbs. Bryce Cobbs is a young artist in Roanoke, and this is also from our self-portrait project. He's one of our artists, but he's working on one of our artists in residence projects right now as well. But I don't have to tell people in a group like this what it's like when you get together and create something, because there's a certain level of comfort in collaboration. And that can come both from letting go in a creative process that an artist has when they start to undertake something and they kind of get in that space. It can also come by kind of well-practiced collaboration and exploration and kind of in a space where people are comfortable together. And so we see that, and this is a dance video that was produced in our self-portrait project. And that comes through. Those few hesitant strokes, a surprising syntax, a fledgling rhythm, and then we go somewhere that we hadn't planned on going. And the question is, I'm in community development, I'm a planner by training, and the question is like, what about the plan? What about the plan that we put on paper that we started when we got together and we said, let's do this? Can we use a process that's kind of shaped by the arts and informed by the arts? Can we use that in economic and community development? Can we use it in healthcare policy? Can we use it in thinking about wastewater systems? Who knows? But can community engagement become civic co-creation? Is there a way that we can engage in a planning process and say, let's get the community involved and hear from them? Is there a way that we can turn that on its head and actually create a unique process based on the unique voices, perspectives, skills, abilities, talents of people who are in this space with us? And so, again, can we be artists in an art space? It's one of the kind of slogans we use in Roanoke. We want to create an art space where people are comfortable in kind of releasing their creative talents. So for this year, the artist, in the next 15 minutes or so, I'll give you a sense of ways we're exploring and how we kind of came about it. So there are a lot of things, forces at play when we piece this together. The first was we did an arts and cultural plan in 2012, and Rupert Cutler and I co-chaired that process. And it was a pretty standard plan. We got an APA award for it, Virginia APA award for it, which was because we were putting the arts front and center and creating a cultural plan, I guess. We're not meant to do that. And so that plan's in place. We accomplished about 80% of it. The things that weren't accomplished, it's a community plan. And the people who had kind of pushed to have it on there didn't have the energy to help drive it. So some things didn't actually get done. Fast forward, I took this job in 2019, and that was on the eve of the city approving comprehensive plan, City Plan 2040. And that planning process is a long process, and the plan was in draft form for a long time before council actually approved it. And I knew that interwoven equity and community health were key components of that. And part of what I was attracted to, as far as being a staff person with the city, was advancing that. How are the arts making us more equitable community? How are they making us a healthier community? In 2020, we did the End Racism Now mural. A group of young Black leaders said, hey, this was part of the protest of the George Floyd murder. They came to the city and said, we want to paint the street, and this is something that was happening around the country. And I was the liaison with the group, and was amazed, blown away by the way the city said, yes, here's how you do it. Transportation, parks and recreation, stormwater, the attorney's office, the police department. Everywhere I went and said, hey, what do we have to do this? They said, here's what you have to do, we'll make it happen. And the day was a fantastic, spectacular, moving day, followed by a week where the street was closed, and it was a space of reflection and celebration, memorial. It was really powerful, but it was very, very different for the city to turn over the street in front of City Hall for this art project. 12 artists each did, 11 artists did 12 letters. Each one was a specific art project. And that felt very different to the city, and actually turning over space. And it felt different to the Arts Commission. The Arts Commission then worked with the library. We have our tagline is "We Are Art," and we did a rap cipher. We commissioned rap lyrics, and it was an all-Black production team filmed in the Grandin Theater, and it's a terrific piece that is pulled together by these 8 performers. And the cool thing about that was another thing. Over time, someone came to the city and said, "Hey, I have an idea. Can we do this?" And part of what it showed us was that we didn't have a structure or a process to say yes. There are lots of ways that we could say no by saying it's not in the plan, we don't have it in the budget, etc. But we needed to have a way to say yes. We learned that from that experience. Then with the pandemic, we had artists who wanted to do something. One in particular here, this is a wave that was created with fabric on the side of a fence on a softball field. And it happened at a festival, and then for the weeks after that, it was put up. And we asked Parks and Recreation about it. They said, yes, go ahead and do it. Come April, we're going to take it down. And we said, okay, that's fine. Then come April, I was at an outreach session one day, and we spent a lot of money sometime on public art. And there were 2 little girls there. And I asked them a question. I said, what's your favorite piece of art in the community? And the little girl said, the wave on the fence. I was like, wow, it cost very, very little, but it was a very heartfelt thing. It was a bit of surprise on the landscape. And then Parks and Recreation said, you know what? I wish we could keep it. We can't keep it, but we wish we could, and we want to find new ways to make projects like this happen. But again, we have programs with.
Would you unmute your computer on your mic?
Okay. You want me to hop? After the pandemic, more funding was available, and so we were able to apply to the National Endowment for the Arts. Come on, you can stay.
Someone just said they couldn't hear.
Perfect. We're good to go.
Are you sure? We're gonna have this?
So, unmute you by now.
Now I'm on mute. How about now? Am I good?
Okay,
Okay. All right, so then we applied for National Endowment for the Arts funding from their ARPA funds, and I'm committed to not letting a grant application cycle pass us by. So we're applying for every time there's funding available. There was certainly funding available through the pandemic. So I've come to this, I've been involved with the arts all through my life, I guess, but I came to it specifically and professionally through community development. And we have a program called Rally Southwest Virginia that we've done with 25 or 26 communities. It's a very small grant to build capacity in communities. And we give them a little grant of $3,000 and say, okay, you can do a project. We're going to be here with you and we'll coach you through the project, through all aspects of it, and help them practice decision making. So in all of those projects, we had maybe 1 or 2 signage projects, and even those were arts related, but all of the rest of them were arts projects, every one of them. So the question was, if we've got art, if these art projects are doing meaningful community development work, we see that, why can't we pay artists to be experts in this work? So that's what that was other additional thinking around this. And we've got willing leadership. City manager Bob Cow is very supportive of this. The institute, it's ICMA. The
International City Managers.
International City Managers Association came out with a problem-solving guide. The arts is a civic problem-solving tool, and Bob downloaded it and sent it to me the day it came out. So he's a fan of this. We've got a 15-member appointed Roanoke Arts Commission, and they are very active, and they get this and are helping to drive this in the community. So with all of those things, why not make it the Year of the Artist? And we've got lots of goals with the Year of the Artist, but some of the key ones are to advance community goals. We specifically align these programs with City Plan 2040. That's what we applied to the National Endowment for the Arts to do an Artists in Residence program, specifically to advance those goals. We want to integrate artists in civic problem solving. We want to explore and experiment. We want to pay artists. More artists are often asked to do things for free, even though they're not going to get necessarily rich on this, and it's not a full-time job, but we'll pay them. We want to strengthen the artist network. I mentioned that we had a city plan, the Arts and Cultural Plan in 2012. It felt like the day after we came out with the plan, our Arts Council folded. So they were reorganizing. We tried to pick up pieces of that as the city, but we still have lots of work to do to strengthen our network of artists. We want to connect artists, and additionally, connect arts at the intersection of health and wellness, education, economic development, etc. And then, how did that go away? Very importantly, we want to play and have fun. I started to tell the story earlier. I was moving in an exhibit this weekend, and a city council member said, "Oh, I wish I had your job. All you do is play." And I was like, "Oh, it just got my goat. Like, what do you mean all I do is play? I'm here all weekend in this exhibit mood, and it's not just play." And then afterwards, I was like, "Wait a minute, this was today. This is what I turned on its head." I'm like, you know what? Yes, we're supposed to be playing. People should be watching what we're doing, saying, "How can I be a part of that?" It shouldn't look like work. And so that was a good lesson for me. And then we really are trying to intentionally build a learning community. a space where we can do things that we haven't done before, make mistakes, learn from those mistakes, try it again, make different mistakes, and support each other as we're doing it. So every time we have a meeting every week, we go through these every week. So we just keep making you go through them again by hitting the wrong button. All right, so we have a website, it's roanokearts.org, and you can put /YOTA, Y-O-T-A, that's the year of the artist. And you can see the calls that we're putting out. We've got resources, all the resources that we're using in this process. It's a way, I'm learning every step of the way because as we do a training, it's helping us. I'm digging into it. We're asking questions. We're calling people in other parts of the country, and it's giving me a structure for learning, which is really important. And so the role of the art, here it is. The role of the artist is to make the revolution irresistible. That's got to be part of that fun. That's part of that fun. Irresistible. Okay, and it doesn't, even though it's fun, it doesn't mean it's not important and serious work. So if we've got to believe we can create the world, that vision is a key part of the work that we're doing. And we're trying to figure out the languages. We're helping artists develop projects in the community. We're trying to help them figure out what their framework is, give them a framework for thinking through it. And it's never going to necessarily be exactly the right framework, and that's part of the learning. So the typical way we think about it, where do we want to go? Where are we starting from, and how are we going to get there? So at least put down some thoughts, in that kind of theory of change. What is it you want to do? How is it going to help you as an individual artist? How is it going to help the organization if you're partnering with an organization? And then how is it going to help the community? We're looking for transformation. That's a lot to ask for a little $3,000 project, but it's really worth thinking about. Now, we also, the heck got really, really small. So this is a quote, this is the Angela Davis quote, and then Talia Logan did this portrait of Angela Davis. In my mind, it's art that can begin to make us feel what we don't necessarily understand. It's art that can make us feel what we don't necessarily understand. So we can say we have that theory of change, and here's how we want our project to work. But at the same time, we want to give artists the space to get in there and feel things, to engage other people so they feel things, and the space for the project to change. And this has been guiding us since since 2020, since the summer of 2020, this has been forefront in our mind in that it's time for us to do a new arts and cultural plan, but we want artists to engage with us to feel what the arts might do for us, because we don't know. We really don't know. We haven't experienced it yet in Roanoke. So artists, we hope are going to help us do that. So that theory of change is one thing. We can theorize as much as we want, but until we put money in artists' hands, the artists get to work with us, we won't really feel it. And then process. We keep saying, this is one of our mantras, that the process is more important than the product. The process has got to be more important than the product in any number of ways. Sometimes in some of these stipends that we're giving artists to do the work, everything will have a product. It's got to have something that's publicly shown or publicly displayed or performed. But we're really more interested in what we're learning along the way. All right. And this, I said this earlier today, that this is really, it's just asset-based community development. And we're looking around the people in the community and the artists in the community. But we're also doing training with artists around what it means to have agency. We're doing facilitation training and participatory decision-making training. We're doing arts as business training. And it sounds like training and workshops, but a lot of these just end up being conversations. Because there's so much wisdom in the room. We're just mining the wisdom and then sharing it back in a way so that we're learning. And key to it, who's been overlooked, what gifts are we not tapping, and who do we think is not worthy of as a contributor? Who do we think is not worthy as a contributor? And you'll never hear someone say that, but it's surely the way we act in communities, we think people aren't worthy of contribution. And that's what we're working around, and we think the arts are the way to help us do that. So how we're doing it, we started in beginning of this year. It's the year of the artist, but we started it in July. We're making it a fiscal year, because then you get 2 years out of the year of the artist, 22 and 23. And I just did talk with somebody. I think. Well, it's not firm yet, but we're gonna have an exhibit beginning January 24 of an art exhibit in an art space that will be cumulatively sharing what we're learning in the exhibit. So it's going to go even beyond the 2 years. Yay! So we packed all this into the year of the artist, though, to create energy, synergy, get people excited. We got 360 artists who have signed up to be part of it. We've got people who are popping into the calls every week. Our first call was a paid self-portrait project. We paid them $500 to render a self-portrait. That could be a performance, it could be a visual self-portrait. We had 76 artists respond, and the self-portrait was not just of them, but it was of them in community, sharing what they cared about in the community, how their art's making the community a better place, how the art is informing it, how the community is informing their art. And we're really, really pleased with what we got out of it. The night that we dedicated it, we hung the exhibit outside of city council chambers. So we had 48 works, a representation of works that were hanging outside city council chambers. We had a little gathering beforehand. Artists packed council chambers, and they announced it. They read a proclamation and said it's the year of the artist. And then the council stood and applauded the artists.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, it was just a great, exciting start to this. And here are a few of the pieces from, you saw some earlier as I was getting started. But this is Katrina, and she does a lot of work in Carver Gardens, a local community garden. Another thing that we are really exploring, these connections are critical. We've got some folks who are involved who cross over into the local food shed network. And so we're doing a cross conversations with the food hub. And we've got, I think, 4 or 5 grants that are food related, local food related. So I'm sure that we're going to have more of these kinds of projects once we dig in more deeply and explore the connection between local art and local food. This is J.C. Stallings. This piece, he's a teacher at, he's a new teacher at Lucy Addison Middle School. It's got a heavy Black population historically of African American school. And you can see here that there's so much happening. This was maybe in his first month or 2 of teaching at the school. He started work on this self-portrait. And he engaged the kids. And when you look at it up close, it's layer after layer. He's got kids, there's protective stuff on the tables when the kids are drawing and they're drawing on it. And he cut pieces of that and incorporated it in this mixed media piece. And I just love it. And I hope the students, he said the students really love seeing it. We haven't all video talking about that. April Yap, her piece is Newfound Element. And this is the first time she taught a painting class. This is at the Melrose Library. And she talks about how it transformed the way the confidence she had in engaging people in the community around her. So that was the first call. We did a call for art underneath some bridges that have been tagged with graffiti on the Greenway. This is the final product. His renderings were so good and compared to what the art came out like, that I'm not really sure this is a rendering or this is the actual art. So it's one of the, this is one of the actual bridges. But this started with a process where we worked in the neighborhood, run a college class, and did presentations on the role of public art in the community and about the space in particular, and different aspects of public art and different aspects of the space. And from that, the community developed a call. Then the artist John Merle proposed the project. We created a sign up and worked with the neighborhood, and more than 60 volunteers helped paint the murals. Another call is Art Matters grants, and these are specifically calls for art advancing wellness, justice, and inclusion. And we had $100,000 to give in small grants of $3,000 each to artists. And I've got a huge long list, you can't read it, but I'll tell you, I just went through a few of them. We've got Don't Blink, which is a video project for a hip hop song exploring gun violence in the community. Drum circles, traditional music song cycle, a film about a dancer who loses her hearing. And they didn't know they were both working on some more projects, but there's a ballet for the deaf community being developed. Culinary arts, underrepresented culinary artists in the Roanoke Valley, photo exhibit, circle songs, the Daisy Chain Art Parade on April 15th. The artist is working with crews to their teams. He's doing community building. He's having teams develop performances, what do you call it, parade? Entries in a parade. And he's helping to make these giant heads. So they'll walk around with giant heads. And then Brian Hancock, we're doing soul sessions. He is leading our effort. We're going to have a Roanoke Youth Poet Laureate program. So at the end of next year, we'll have a Youth Poet Laureate who represents the city of Roanoke. That's one page. I've got several pages here, but these are all individual artists who have a vision, who see something that's not there, and we're giving them a little grant to explore it. A queer youth aerial arts and activism effort. Let's see, poetry on the marquee of the Grandin Theater, a photo or a two-dimensional art exhibit exploring housing insecurity. So that's a hair formations event, exploring discrimination based on hairstyles through an arts event. So those are all projects. This is one of Charlie Brower. That's him out modeling what's going to happen on the street next week if we get permission to do it. This is the Benediction Project, which is a sculpture that's moving through 9 different houses of worship, exploring the role of the civic and the sacred. And then we've got Artists in Residence program. This year we have 11 artists in residence that, unlike those lots of little projects where they propose a project, we give them funding. This program is for artists to embed with a department or an aspect of the city. And the Gun Violence Prevention Commission, exploring neighborhood centers and what it takes to create a neighborhood center, what we might do. Berglund Center, which was the area that was created through urban renewal. So neighborhood connections at that site. Complete streets, how are we making streets more bikeable, walkable? We've got an artist who's working on that team, and then some neighborhood artists. But all these folks are really now just developing the projects. Their goal was to get in, embed, ask questions, learn. And this is one thing we'll keep saying, I think, for a long time, that it's not about, hey, you got a sculptor who's who's an artist in residence, so you want a sculpture. We want the process to be what comes to the table. So we don't want folks saying, okay, well, paint us a wall because you're a mural. No, let's dig in, ask questions, and explore and see how we can change some of the ways or broaden some of the ways thinking happens around the table. Catherine Devine just had the Ginkgo Festival, the Sister Cities International. We have 7 Sister Cities relationships, and each is represented by a sculpture in this park. And as the ginkgo trees were falling here at the end of the pandemic, this group is trying to figure out how to engage more people. So they put on a mini festival in a really fast way on the day that the ginkgo leaves were falling. And it was terrific. But you know, we have a Russian sister city. And there were a lot of, you know, the governor came out with telling the city of Roanoke and the city of Norfolk that we should end our sister city relationships. But this is citizen diplomacy, and that's not how it works. So when someone came to protest this event last week, Catherine, who also on her own during the fall undertook a fundraising effort by making art for Ukraine, she was able to talk to the people, and they said, understand your position, but this is what we're doing here today. And the people looked at her and said, well, we know you and we trust you. And then and they put down her silence. So even though this is fun, the city council members might say we're just playing, it's really important work, and we hope that we can, by making it fun, by showing the community how this what engagement can look like through the arts, that we get even more to happen. And there's another artist in residence. She was out at Go Fest sharing her postcards of the river critters. She's our stormwater artist in residence. And that's it. That was a lot, I know. But. All right, let me see if we have any, are there any questions?
Hi, it's Laura from the Moss. Hey, I was curious about the artist residencies that you mentioned, and if there is a place online or a place to find out a little more about what each of them is working on and how they're engaging with the community.
Oh, that's the perfect question. So I have got there was a spot on and I'll pull it up, I'll share the screen. And there's a spot where it says we're going to have projects. And every one of the projects is going to have a page. The only page I have up so far is Charlie Brower's, because he's pretty far along on this. And I want somewhere, I'd have somewhere to go when the sculpture comes up on Tuesday. But my plan is we are going to have the artist in residence. They're going to meet on the 22nd together. And when they come up that day, I want to have a page for each one of them and what documentation I have so far. But the artists in residence are really just starting to get going. So a lot of them don't have anything to share yet.
Okay, I'll keep an eye on the site. Thank you. But it looks exciting. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Laura. All right.
Thank you so much for this presentation. I was really fascinated by many information that you shared with us. And then in particular, what you told us about the Year of the Artist project, and also the calls for arts that advance awareness and justice and these kind of things. So my question is, what do you want to achieve with those, in your own terms, of course, these kind of programs, what you seek to achieve, and then how much of whatever your goal is you've achieved so far, how much of it have you, or do you think you have achieved so far? And lastly, how do you measure this impact?
Wow, yeah, that's the heart of it. Someone just sent me a link. It was Katie Trazo. Yes, the Katie's involved with this. She's one of our
Community singing, I saw.
Yeah. So she's in the community singing, and I've also asked her to help us kind of think about our network and how we're going to lead this network and how we're going to grow and sustain the network. So one of the goals is just at the end of the year, even success to me will be, is there demand for more? Not just demand for more money, but demand for more space for thought, for more collective learning, and more growth together. So that's one piece. And of course, each one of the grants, this is the city. So I'm kind of an idiot, and I was like, oh, well, I'm going to pay the artist in advance. And so each one of those 48 self-portraits even, I had to do a separate contract for each one of these. So I'm going to do almost 100 contracts through the course of this. But each one of those contracts has deliverables. So each artist is telling us what they're going to achieve. And so we'll track that. And I think that we're going to keep kind of learning in a way. Of course, when I wrote the grants, if I think back at it, part of it is I want the city departments to understand the value of the arts and ways that they can reach out and engage in different ways. So part of it is internal impacts. I think awareness across the community is another goal. We've had lots of good kind of earned media and conversation, and I'm hearing things, but that's not a good measure yet. Let's see. Overall, I want to grow and change the way we're doing it. So most of the money, we've never funded individual artists before. The city money has always gone to larger arts and cultural organizations. And it's a pretty robust process, so even smaller organizations sometimes have trouble applying. So I want to broaden who we see as our arts partners in the community. And I think already we're achieving that. But I think part of the measurement too will be, okay, how many members of a network do we have? And then we're going to do some kind of self-evaluation as well. So I'm more likely to get involved in a civic project, for instance. Like we'll ask them back.
Thank you.
Molly, I see you have your hand up. Can you have a question?
Hi, thank you so much for your talk. I was curious about, you talked about a community engagement as civic co-creation and kind of bringing in a plurality of voices. And I was interested to know, like, what drives that ethic for you? If it's experiences, if it's literature, kind of, yeah, what drives that for you and what does that look like?
Yeah, so I've spent about 15 years, well, I guess the last, I spent more than that, but 15 years here in Virginia, working in community engagement for the state. And it's one thing, it's part of the Department of Housing and Community Development. It's part of our ethic. And so, you know, we say as a matter of fact that we serve the communities. We give a grant to a community. It might go through a town or the jurisdiction, but we're serving the people of that community. So we are very interested in whose voices are being heard, who's helping to build the project. You know, it's completely possible to invest in a project that advances a status quo in a current power structure. It doesn't do anything to lift the community in a way. So we look at those aspects. We work with community development block grant funds, which requires that really, because there's the community development block grant fund is designed to work with low-income populations. The investments need to be targeted to economic blight or physical blight in a community. Our housing investments, we're investing in houses through multiple programs. These are houses that don't have plumbing, perhaps. There are plumbing rehabilitations. So it's part of that's part of my ethic that way. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard. Brad, what do you think? Yeah, and before this, I worked in California for a nonprofit organization running leadership programs and youth programs, and we were focused on that leadership represent and look like the community that it came from. So my background, I guess I have a master's in urban and regional planning, and then an MFA in creative writing. My undergraduate is in economics. But I would say after graduate school, my first job at Great Valley Center was probably a piece that really ingrained that.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for the presentation. I understand that so much of the initiatives are hinging on grants. Artists being given grants to do something about it. Are you assured that the grants are going to be there for a longer period of time? And if there is no such assurance, are there deliberate initiatives that you are doing to ensure continuity even after the grants, after grants expire?
Well, that's a terrific question. The question was about grants, if we're going to have funding here on. So I said I'm committed to applying to, like, the National Endowment for the Arts is our kind of our primary suspect for that. I just got another grant this week to continue our artist in residence program for next year. So I'm glad about that. I've applied for a larger grant for more resources to do the same work in a different way coming up. I am not, the question about money being there next year is almost not on my mind as much as will we be able to spend the money this year? And I mentioned the rally program that we did this with, or we did the group work with. We would give a $3,000 grant to a community, and it would say they would not only do one project, they would do 3 projects and still have money left over. Because it turned out that what they didn't necessarily need the money to do the project, but they needed to organize. Yeah, and so just being in the room with them and helping them think through and prioritize and giving them tools that way. Now, that said, the money's why they're in the room, right? The money makes them feel like they can do it. It helps them see that it's possible. Because if we study with any group, we're staying saying, what are our liabilities or what are our challenges? First thing is going to be money. So almost if you could take that out of the way, then we have to kind of get that out of the way at first to do the thinking. So I'm going to be interested in some of the artists in residence. They're already doing work, and they're used to piecing it together. So I'm having to say, okay, build a budget so you do spend the money because you've got this opportunity. And then I think that they're like our local community foundation. I'm going to go sit down with them. I think this is completely fundable, especially in these small amounts like this. It's very visible. And I think there should be other partners out there. And I've got to get busy kind of doing that part, that stewardship.
I think we had a question from John Gatherwood again online. John, are you still there?
Hey, thanks so much, Brad. Can you hear me? Awesome. Well, first of all, Doug, it's great to meet you. Thank you so much for sharing this really inspiring set of initiatives that you shepherded in Roanoke. It's really, it's heartening and exciting to see the progress you made. So I guess first I just wanted to applaud you for the effort of you and community members you've been working with.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, one of the things that stuck out to me in the earlier part of your presentation was you reflecting on the moment that you recognized that, as you put it, there were many structures in place to say no, but really what was incumbent on you and your collaborators was to not only identify, but build the structures for saying yes, particularly if you were seeking to hear and act on the ideas and proposals from members of the community whose voices historically have been underrepresented in community development, arts-based projects. Would you speak a bit about, I think one of the reasons that really stuck out to me is that it's both it's an operational question, like what are the mechanics you need to have in place in order to hear viewpoints and say yes, but it's also a question of mindsets. How do you shift the perceptions and biases of those you might be working with about who are in a position to propose ideas that could be enacted on a citywide scale? Would you speak a little bit about how you've navigated both creating those structures of yes, like pragmatically, but also in terms of shifting mindsets among the folks that you collaborate with?
Wow, you really just hit at the heart of that question, I think. There's structures and there are operations and there's also culture. And it's that culture. I don't know, and it's not just a culture of, well, we're busy, you're a citizen, we can't do that. There's also the culture on the citizen side that it's whose place is it? Is it my place to propose a project or to try and advance something? It's almost like we're so used to the answer being no that it's been ingrained in us as citizens in a way. I think we have to create the structure so that we've got, we need that policy on paper in a way to help us to point to in a way. So the structures don't have to be complicated. We have been, Brad asked me like, why we're going to have more murals on it. And, I think there are many reasons for that. But one reason is we haven't incentivized it and said, hey, and encouraged it in a way. So we developed a program called Art in Place where we'll pay a third of a mural, the property owner pays a third, and the neighborhood association or the business association pays a third of it. And we've done 3 projects in the last year, and people love them, and city council loves them. But it gave us a way to say yes. Meanwhile, in the past, people would come and kind of expect the city to say no in a way. So there's that part. I think we have to model the way, and no one's told me no yet as far as trying to come to this kind of place of yes as an initial response. Our city manager is very supportive of it, or so far has been supportive of everything we're trying to do. He knows that we've got limited capacity as well. If this is a part-time position, and it's only one part-time position, so it relies on a lot of volunteer efforts. At the same time, so we also have to kind of guard against overcommitting in a way. So that boomerang is the way to prevent that overcommitting. So someone comes with an idea, and the answer is yes, this is a great idea. Now let's talk about how you might be able to help us advance that. Now someone came and made an appointment with me last week, and they had no intention or no desire to help advance it. And that's where you've got to be able to say, well, here's some other people who might help you advance it, but still not taking it off of them. And when you go to them, please don't hand it to them on a plate. It just won't happen. It's too good of an idea for that. Consider what role you may be able to play. And the Department of Housing and Community Development, we talk about the spark plugs a lot. The person who comes in and turns on the light or brings food for everybody to have the meeting. And those people are critical. And each one of you have people in meetings who come to a meeting, and you know the meeting is going to go better because that person is in the meeting. Here's Bill.
That's right.
So, those people don't have titles, and they may not be encouraged. Sometimes might even say, well, why am I in this room? But if we can look at everybody and kind of say, what are you bringing? It's going to help us that way. Now, I think we'll see if that person. I don't think she felt frustrated when she left because I said yes. Let's do it. We don't have the capacity in this office. It's not our role. But here's what I can do. I can connect you with this person, this person, this person. I think it also comes back to the money part And the more I know I've got more resources coming in, the more comfortable I'll be able to not take it on myself necessarily, and not have to say no. Those resources come in financial resources, but they're also in that network. And we've got a network of organizations in the community, and we've got a network of artists in the community. And that's one thing I realized as we build this network, and I'm watching it happen, because they're doing things without me, being outside of the room. They are supporting each other and providing resources. They're going to each other's projects and helping these things. But I'm going to keep exploring that on the because I know we still have lots of structures in place that kind of reinforce no. But I'm going to keep exploring those yeses.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, John.
A question that I think kind of sits along the lines of some of the things that have come up. Thank you for this presentation. Yeah, it was interesting. I'm like very, very unfamiliar with like the art that's happening in and around Roanoke and stuff. So like I'm just very green on this. But I was really captivated by you used the language of like capacity building and assets. So like assets-based community development and stuff. And for me, I was thinking about like from an economic perspective of like the tension between like an asset versus like a commodity or like a debt or something. And so you have like the fence project that you showed us, this like beautiful and perhaps producing some sort of capacity of like inspiring awe and beauty or something that's maybe intangible or like can't have like an exchange value attached to it. But then I can't help but be struck by the fact that it entails a future cost of like somebody has to come and remove it, you know, and stuff, as opposed to like building economic capacity through like I don't know, like spaces where people can come to like make art or something, or that they can sell art or something like this. So I'm curious if there's any work on like with that, or if there's been discussion and thoughts on this. Yeah.
Well, you have just given me this like accounting epiphany with that liability part. That's a big thing on my mind. As we create projects, they've got to be maintained, and I'm the repair guy too.
Yeah, like a mural fades or something. Yeah.
And so that's often why the city will say no. It's that obligation of that future liability. Well, first, that language, and that's probably professional jargon that I jumped into, kind of asset-based community development, kind of thinking about what we have as opposed to what we need. And so a lot of times, people will come into a community and say, well, you're missing this. That doesn't feel good. people are doing that. And we've got so much to build from. And unless we acknowledge it and kind of build that up, we won't get anywhere. Now, I think that art space, I think there's some more of those needed in Roanoke and some of those in the future. And I think those are going to come from, if they're going to be sustainable or used, they're going to come from this network of arts. And hopefully that will, it'll also maybe even be addressing some of the city problems as well, city challenges that folks look at.
Yeah, I had a question about that too. I was going to ask like, what are the actual civic problems that you're thinking of addressing? But like, so I lived in Eugene, Oregon for a minute, which has a very vibrant like art culture that's really like kind of ground up and like not, it's like almost anti-hierarchical in a lot of senses, where people are painting murals for fun with their friends and stuff, like without getting approval from the city and stuff, but like different than just, I don't know, destructive, I don't know, like graffiti or something like that. Well, although that line is kind of maybe a gray area, but there's a space out there. I can't remember what it's called, but it was like a community collaboration space that was like set up to operate like a co-op, and then they had donation-based art supplies and just tons and tons of like paints and scraps and fabrics and stuff, and like people who were artistically inclined just like gravitated there like automatically. Like they didn't have to be told to come or paid to come, like they just showed up. Like
I still want to see that happen.
yeah.
And there was one, like in Durham, they kind of built a business out helping other communities start things up. It's called like arts exchange or the Durham Art Exchange, maybe that.
Yeah.
And that helped revitalize a failing strip mall in Durham. And that was on our 2012 plan, was to create an art exchange. And I know an artist in town who was really interested in that. But for a variety of reasons, we never got a team together to create. It's one of the pieces that never happened out of that. But that space for the energy and synergy, and a space where people feel welcome, and it is a creative space. That we can model what we're trying to do in the entire community in a space like that. And overall, this really is about belonging.
Very good. We're about out of time, but thank you so much, Doug, for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.